Hello, and welcome back to Clay's 50 Film Challenge! Yeah! That's right, my name is Clay Johnson, and this is my 50 Film Challenge. Now, if you watched the last video, you will know that I have changed the format of this because I'm way past my 1 year deadline, and so I'm just trying to get through the films as quickly as possible. So I will be reviewing 5 films in this video. I will be reviewing The Philadelphia Story and Love and Death, both of which were suggested by Brad, so thank you for that. Gangs of New York and The Conversation, both of which were suggested by Andrew, so thank you, Andrew. And I've changed the order up a little bit just for ease. So the last film I will be reviewing is Moon, which was suggested by Jeremy, so thank you for that, sir. So, the first film I will be reviewing, like I said, is The Philadelphia Story. This is a romantic comedy from 1940. It was directed by George Cukor and stars Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and Jimmy Stewart. This is actually the film that Jimmy Stewart won his Best Actor Oscar for. So this is one of those that's kind of been circling in my orbit for quite a while because I'm a huge Jimmy Stewart fan. Always been a big fan of his, and was always interested in that film where he finally got his Best Actor Oscar. And I will say I find this an interesting one for him to win for because. At least out of the films that I've seen, it's definitely the one that he's the most different in. And I'll expound on that in just a second. So basically, this film is it was based on a Broadway play of the same name by Philip Barry, and it is basically about a woman and her ex-husband, played by Hepburn and Grant, respectively. Um, Basically, they were estranged and then got divorced, and she is now on the verge of marrying someone else. And basically, all sorts of things are coming in. Jimmy Stewart plays a reporter who has basically been brought in kind of secretly by Cary Grant in order to kind of cover this big wedding. And it seems like he's trying to do this as a way to get back at Hepburn, but it also seems like in ways he's trying to get her back. And it's basically at varying points in the film, Hepburn considers all contenders. Her current fiance, Jimmy Stewart, as well as Cary Grant. And there's a lot of stuff going around. Like I said, Jimmy Stewart, I know him mostly from Frank Capra films, and in most of those, he's kind of the put upon hero. He's often the kind of the aw shucks kind of guy, but he's usually like the guy that's always doing the right thing. And in this, he's much more cynical. He does seem very wise and things like that, but definitely not always doing the right thing. He has a woman that is his partner who he is dating, but at times honestly, for the longest time, I wasn't sure that they were actually dating because, like, they make reference to it slightly, and then in the very next scene, he's hitting on Katharine Hepburn, and then I'm like, oh, are they together? Are they not? And it's not until the very end of the film that I was like, oh no, they were together. He just often doesn't care about that. I mean, there were so many different dynamics here. I will say, but I enjoyed all of them. I think that they were all played very well. The one thing that was a little confused about is I feel like this film wants us to like Cary Grant's character more than I at least initially do. And I think a large portion of that is the very first time we see them interacting. he punches her. Now, yes, I think it's more of like a shock thing rather than trying to be violent and hurt her. But at the same time, when that's the very first thing that you see of a guy that he's trying to harm the woman, that's kind of a hard thing to get behind. I will say there were several points in which I did find myself liking him, but then that scene kept coming up in my mind. It's, I mean, I think a lot of that is just the sign of the times, just the things that they thought were common, not necessarily acceptable, but common. And so that did put me off, but for the most part, I really enjoyed this film. I do think it's definitely worth checking out. Katharine Hepburn has a great performance. Once again, not as off kilter as Bringing Up Baby, but a different side of her than I've usually seen. And I really enjoyed the performance of all three of the leads. So I'm giving this one a 3. So the next film was Love and Death, which is a 1975 comedy directed by Woody Allen, starring Woody Allen and Diane Keaton. I mean, this says it's a satire of Russian literature. I haven't really read much Russian literature, so I wouldn't really be able to comment on that. I will say, though, it doesn't really take itself very seriously. It's definitely one of Woody Allen's comedies because it is a period piece, but Woody Allen and Diane Keaton specifically basically feel like modern characters who have been dropped into this historical backdrop. They're very witty. The dialogue is very snappy. They are challenging a lot of things and ideas, mostly the concepts of love and death. Those are, that's the title, and those are pretty much the concepts that they're getting the most pot shots, the most jokes about them. I will say, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was really funny. I haven't seen a lot of Woody Allen films. And if you're the type of person that does not want to watch Woody Allen films, I completely understand. However, if you are wanting to try them out and you're looking for a good comedy, I would say this is a good one. I did feel like it started to kind of lose steam towards the end. There were definitely things at the end, though, that I did enjoy. And overall, I felt like it was a pretty solid film. But I did feel like the beginning was stronger than the second half. But I'm still giving this one a 3. So then the next one was Gangs of New York from 2002. Obviously, this is an epic period drama directed by Martin Scorsese. And it stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, Cameron Diaz, Liam Neeson, and a host of others. It actually even has Henry Thomas in it, the kid from E.T., although he looks much different than he did in that. But yes, so this story takes place in a historical backdrop, although I'm sure that the actual like narrative story was completely made up. It did take place in a historical period where there were gangs that basically controlled New York. In fact, for a while, they kind of ran the city and were the protection for the common people. Because the police just didn't really care. But at a certain point, they became more trouble than they were worth when they started warring with each other. And so this film basically follows the story of Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who at the beginning of the film we see as a child, and his father, played by Liam Neeson, is warring with Daniel Day Lewis's character, Bill the Butcher. and Bill the Butcher kills his father, although shows him a great deal of respect. But Leonardo DiCaprio, as a child, runs away, and he's presumed to have died. Well, then we catch up with him as he has grown older, and basically he is planning to basically get close to Bill the Butcher in an attempt to then kill him. And there are various other things that come up in this. I, I will say this film had a lot on its mind, and I don't think that it was really successful in a lot of what it was doing. There were just so many ideas and messages, while at the same time, there's the plot going on. I felt like it was very confused. I will say, in my opinion, the best thing to come out of this film is Daniel Day Lewis's performance as Bill the Butcher. One of the best characters I've seen in film. Just really interesting. I would have really been interested to just watch his character and more of just his story rather than anything else that was going on. I felt like overall it was a mess. However, it was a mess that I kind of enjoyed watching. So I'm not going to give it a 3 because I felt like it was really disjointed. And also, for a Martin Scorsese film, now granted, I haven't seen a lot of them, but it really didn't feel like a Scorsese film. It felt kind of off for him. So, like I said, a bit of a mess, but I did kind of enjoy it. So I'm going to give this a 2. So then the next film was The Conversation from 1974. This is a mystery thriller film directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and it starred Gene Hackman. There are also appearances by Harrison Ford, Terry Garr, Cindy Williams, and briefly Robert Duvall. I say that the others appear; those are really kind of the other big names that are attached. But this is definitely Gene Hackman's film. Basically, it centers around Hackman's character, who basically is a surveillance expert, a man named Harry Call. And he's, like I said, he's a surveillance expert, and he is hired basically to surveil these two people and just pick up their conversation and then report back to the people he was hired by. And this one conversation keeps coming up. It keeps being played throughout the film. It's the first thing that we're introduced to at the very beginning of the film, and then we hear various snippets of it throughout. And it's one of those things that when you first hear it, it sounds very normal, very ordinary. But the more you listen to it, the more you hear different things, and you're like, okay, are they speaking in code? What does this mean? What does that mean? It's a very interesting the way they break down the conversation, and basically throughout the film, at first this is just a job, but the more that he listens to this conversation, and the more that he kind of comes up against roadblocks of, delivering the audio the way that he had understood was going to be done, the more he starts to question whether or not he should be doing this, and it really kind of zeroes in on it's very much a caricature piece, although there is kind of plot going on and there are interesting twists and turns, especially towards the end, but for the most part it's very introspective towards Gene Hackman's character. And this is one of those films that I feel like you could watch several times and pick up new things. So I really enjoyed this one. So I'm going to give this one also a 3. So then the last film I will be reviewing today is called Moon from 2009. It's a science fiction film directed by Duncan Jones and starring uh, basically Sam Rockwell. There are other people that make appearances. Kevin Spacey voices a robot, and different characters are seen on monitors and stuff in various different scenes. But for the most part, this is Sam Rockwell almost completely by himself for the majority of the film. And I will say, this is one that um, pretty much from when it came out, I had been hearing about it, and I mean, I don't remember the conversations about the film because everything in this film caught me completely by surprise. So I'm assuming either the people that were talking about it didn't mention a whole lot about the plot, or I just forgot because I have a horrible memory. But either way, I am also not going to give very much away about the plot because I didn't know much and I really enjoyed finding out things as I went along. But I will say it follows Sam Rockwell's character, Sam Bell, who at the very beginning of the film, we're introduced to this company that basically does mining for a particular element called helium 3, and they do their mining on the far side of the moon. And basically we're introduced to Sam Rockwell's character Sam Bell, who at the beginning of the film believes he is an astronaut who is at the end of a 3-year work cycle, and that he is about to go home. And all I'll say from there is that he soon discovers that pretty much everything he thought to be true is not exactly what he thought it was. And it's a really interesting film. There's a lot going on here. There's examination of self identity and kind of the value of a person in more ways than one. And I mean, this is one of those films that I feel like there are so many messages that are there that I wasn't able to catch all of them, but not in a confusing way like Gangs of New York. Like, it's not that they're trying to do things that aren't successful. They're all there. They're all hitting, but there's so much there that I didn't necessarily catch all of it. And so it's actually one that I'm kind of excited to rewatch. Maybe not right away, but one I mean, the more I've sat with it, the more that I've kind of, reflected on, and I'm like, oh yeah, this probably means this, and things like that. And I really enjoy those films. I love films that make me think, things that challenge different ideas, and make me think about things that I wouldn't normally think about. And so I really enjoyed this one. So I am going to also give this one a 3. So just to recap, The Philadelphia Story, A3. Love and Death, 3. Gangs of New York, 2. The Conversation, 3. And Moon, also a 3. Next time I will be back, probably doing another group of about 5. I think I'm only down to 10 more films. And I think next time, all of them are going to be films that were suggested to me by James. So, and I kind of did this on purpose, James, uh, just to kind of give you your own episode because you've got 5 films here, and so I figured that would work out the best. Thank you guys once again for watching. As always, feel free to comment down below if you agree or disagree with my thoughts on the film. And also, do want to plug something real fast. I'm also currently doing a podcast called Dudes Do Disney, which is a Disney podcast where we're reviewing the animated films of Disney and Pixar. And I'm doing that with my friend Josh Herndon. So feel free to check that out. It's not a kiddie podcast. It's definitely we're kind of just being ourselves. But I feel like it's a lot of fun. A kind of an irreverent look at Disney. We're not afraid to call out when they do something kind of questionable. But yeah, check that out and check out the next episode when it drops. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.